I want you to imagine a criminal right now. Just picture one in your head. What do you see?
I mean, if I had to guess based on our previous deep dives, most people are probably picturing a guy in a ski mask. Or, someone smashing a window, hot wiring a car in a dark alley.
Right, exactly. We default to force. We default to stealth. But there is this entirely different class of offender that operates completely differently. They don't use a gun. They don't use a crowbar. They use a weapon that is, honestly, far more potent and way scarier because it's completely invisible.
Because they use you, specifically your own beliefs, your own desires.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We are continuing our module on nonviolent crime today, and we're zeroing in on a group that the linguist David Marr famously called the aristocrats of crime.
The confidence men, the grifters, the pros.
And aristocrats is such a telling label, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Because unlike the joyriders or the occasional shoplifters we covered in part 1 of this module.
You're often just impulsive, yeah.
Right. Unlike them, these people view crime as a vocation. It's a legitimate career path to them.
It's an art form, and that really is our mission today. We've got a fantastic stack of sources for this, primarily Maria Konnikova's book, The Confidence Game, along with the textbook chapter on professional offenders and some really revealing FBI excerpts. We are going to dissect the anatomy of a con.
We need to understand the psychology that makes us all vulnerable, even the smart ones. And we're going to use sociological theory to figure out how someone actually learns to become a professional deceiver.
Because you don't just wake up one Tuesday knowing how to talk a stranger out of their life savings. That takes practice.
It takes a very specific type of education, which we'll get into. But before we jump in, I think we need to set the tone here. This isn't a how-to guide.
No, definitely not. We are not teaching you how to run a Ponzi scheme.
We're trying to understand the mechanism. Because the most terrifying thing about a confidence game is that the victim, the mark, isn't forced to do anything. In a robbery, your money is taken. In a con, it's handed over freely. The victim becomes completely complicit in their own ruin.
So let's unpack how that actually happens. And I think the best way is to anchor this in a narrative from Konnikova's book. It's the story of a psychic named Sylvia Mitchell and a woman named Salfield.
Oh, this case study is classic. It perfectly highlights the first and honestly most critical phase of any confidence game, which the literature calls the put-up.
So, set the scene for us.
Okay, so Salfield walks into Mitchell's parlor in Greenwich Village. She doesn't really say much at all, but Mitchell, the psychic, seemingly knows everything about her immediately. She tells Salfield she's compassionate, highly intelligent but unappreciated, and clearly going through a period of severe emotional turmoil.
And Salfield was probably floored. She felt seen.
Completely. She felt like Mitchell had looked right into her soul. But here's the thing, and this is where we need to push back on the magic aspect of it. Mitchell was not reading her mind.
No, she was reading her demographics, she was reading her face, the cut of her clothes, her hesitation at the door. In the sociology of professional crime, the put-up isn't just grabbing a random person out of a crowd. It's profiling.
Konnikova makes such a great point about motivation here. If I misread someone at a dinner party, it's just an awkward conversation. If a con artist misreads a mark...
They starve. They go to jail.
Exactly.
Oh.
So they are highly motivated to be accurate. And look at who she selected. Salfield was emotionally vulnerable. There's this dangerous myth we tell ourselves that people get scammed because they're stupid or uneducated.
Which is demonstrably false.
Completely false. Intelligence does not save you. Emotional distress completely overrides logic. Mitchell saw that distress during the put-up, and she weaponized it.
And when she had that hook in, Mitchell started doing something called mirroring.
The chameleon effect.
Right. Matching the victim's demeanor, their tone of voice, even their breathing rate. It creates this instant subconscious rapport. You sit there and think, wow, this person just gets me.
And that moves us right into the second phase, the play. If the put-up is the selection process, the play is cultivating trust. Because trust is the absolute currency here. You cannot run a con without it. Once Mitchell established that empathy, she moved to the escalation.
Right, from a standard $75 reading to an absolute crisis. Mitchell suddenly claimed there were dark spirits attached to Salfield's money. And the only way to cleanse it
was to hand the money over to Mitchell.
Mm-hmm.
Temporarily, of course. Just to clean the energy.
And she did it. She handed over massive sums of money over time. And this is where I think a lot of listeners might struggle. Salfield was a very intelligent, successful woman. How do you hand over your life savings to cleanse dark spirits?
Because by that point, she needed the story to be true. She had this deep emotional need for her world to make sense. If she's just having a run of terrible luck, well, that's depressing. But if it's negative energy that can be fixed for a fee, that's a solution.
That promise of meaning is so powerful. It overrides critical thinking because the emotional brain is just screaming, please fix this.
It feels like a magic trick, but with your actual life.
It is exactly like a magic trick. Professional criminals and magicians share a ton of the same psychology. But unlike a magic show where you know you're being tricked, a con follows a strict, rehearsed structure designed to hide the trick until it's way too late. The textbook outlines a 9-step anatomy of a con.
Let's run through the skeleton of this thing because seeing the structure demystifies it a bit. We've got the put-up, which is profiling, and the play, which is bonding. What's next?
Next is the rope. This is the pitch. In a financial scam, this is where they tell you about the proprietary trading algorithm that never loses, or the lost inheritance that just needs a small fee to unlock.
Which leads right into the tail, right?
Yeah. The tail is the narrative of why this opportunity exists for you specifically. Crucially, this appeals to the victim's sense of exceptionalism. They'll say, this investment isn't for everyone, but I can see you are a visionary. They stroke your ego.
Flattery gets you everywhere.
It gets you to the most dangerous step, which is the convincer. You have to let the victim win a little bit.
Kind of like letting a gambler hit a small jackpot early on to keep them at the table.
Exactly like that. In a Ponzi scheme, they might pay out the first few dividends promptly. Or in the psychic case, Mitchell might reveal a hyper-specific detail about Sellfield's life that she couldn't possibly have known, even though she definitely fished it out during the play. The convincer cements the belief. It turns maybe into definitely.
So the hook is fully set. But they don't just take the money and run yet, do they?
No, professional confidence games are usually long cons. They want to milk the victim for everything. So next you have the breakdown. A manufactured crisis occurs. The spirits are angry again. The market shifted. The bank froze the wire transfer. The scheme creates a sudden problem that requires more money to fix.
And that leads to the send.
Yes. The victim is sent to gather more resources.
Yep.
And this is powered entirely by the sunk cost fallacy. The victim thinks, well, I've already given $20,000. If I don't give another $5,000 to fix this glitch, I lose everything. So they double down.
It's so insidious. It's basically weaponizing your own loss aversion against you. You're trying to save your initial investment, so you just throw good money after bad.
Correct. And finally, you get to the touch, which is the final extraction of wealth. But the most sociologically fascinating step is the very last one. The blow-off, sometimes called the fix.
The exit strategy.
It's how they ensure the victim doesn't go to the police.
How do you possibly stop someone from reporting a crime after you've stolen their entire life savings?
You use shame, or even better, complicity. Many cons, like the classic pigeon drop or the check washer scam, involve the victim agreeing to do something slightly illegal themselves.
Oh, I see. Like, hey, we found this bag of money, let's split it, but we can't tell the bank.
Exactly. Once the victim realizes they've been had, they can't go to the police because they have to admit, I was trying to help launder money. Or simply, I was foolish enough to believe a psychic could cleanse my cash. The shame does the con artist's work for them.
That is incredibly dark. But it brings us to the question of why. We've talked about the structure, but let's look at the software running in our brains. Why do we fall for this? You mentioned the sunk cost fallacy, but Konnikova also talks about something called the dark triad.
Yeah, it sounds like a heavy metal band, doesn't it?
It really does.
It actually refers to the personality cluster of the professional offender: narcissism, psychopathy, and Machiavellianism. Now, we hear psychopath and we immediately think of serial killers. But in this context, it refers to emotional detachment. These traits allow the con artist to lie with total nonchalance.
So while my heart would be pounding out of my chest if I tried to scam someone, they're just cool as a cucumber.
Precisely. And that calmness makes them seem trustworthy. As humans, we equate nervousness with lying. Since the con artist isn't nervous, our brain says, well, they must be telling the truth.
On the victim side, we have optimism bias, which we all have to some degree. But there's also superiority, this idea of, I am way too smart to be conned.
That is the absolute most dangerous belief you can hold. There's a great little test Konnikova mentions in the book, the Q test. Do you remember this one?
I do. I actually tried it while reading. You draw a capital letter Q on your forehead with your finger.
Right. Listeners, you can try this right now if you aren't driving. Draw a QN on your forehead. Now, did you draw the tail of the QN on the right side of your own forehead so you could read it in a mind's eye mirror? Or did you draw it on the left so someone facing you could read it?
I drew it so someone facing me could read it.
That suggests you are a high self-monitor. You care about how you are perceived by others. You adapt your behavior to fit the social situation.
Which I usually think of as a good thing. It means I'm socially adept, right?
Usually, yes. But here is the twist. High self-monitors can actually be more vulnerable to cons. Because you are so attuned to social cues, so eager to build rapport and be cooperative, you are much more likely to fall for the social pressure the con artist is applying.
Wow. So trying to be socially adept actually opens the door for them.
It does. The con artist exploits that deep desire to fit in or be liked. They also use the foot in the door technique. They get you to agree to a small thing, a cup of coffee, a tiny reading. And once you say yes, you are psychologically primed to say yes to the big thing just to maintain consistency.
Or they use the reverse, right? The door in the face.
Yes. They ask for something huge right out of the gate. Invest $100,000. You say, no way, I can't do that. And you feel a little guilty for refusing. Then they say, okay, I understand. Well, how about just a $5,000 trial position? You say yes to relieve the guilt of the first refusal. But the $5,000 was their target all along.
And they wrap all of this in urgency. This offer ends at midnight. The spirits are angry right now.
Scarcity and urgency bypass critical thinking completely. When we feel rushed, we rely on heuristics, mental shortcuts, instead of logic.
Okay, so we've looked at the victim's mind. But this is a criminology deep dive.
Right.
We need to look at the offender's development. How does someone wake up and decide, I'm going to be a professional grifter?
This is where we pivot to social learning theory. As we discussed in previous modules, professional crime is not impulsive. The joyrider, the occasional offender, might just see keys in a car and take it. A con artist doesn't just happen.
They are made.
They are educated. Professional criminals often go through a literal form of apprenticeship. They don't go to scam university, but they find a mentor.
So they watch a pro do it first.
Modeling and reinforcement. They watch a steerer or roper work a crowd. They see the financial reward, the reinforcement. They see the status it brings within the network, and then they practice.
Because it requires real, tangible skills. Acting, memory, psychology.
Huge soft skills. And they learn the argot, the specialized language of the trade. Words like mark, shill, roper, the wire. Using this language isn't just about cool slang. It creates a sense of community and professionalism. It reinforces to them that they aren't just thieves. They are insiders.
Which connects directly to Edwin Sutherland's differential association theory.
Sutherland is the heavyweight champion of this topic. Differential association argues that criminal behavior is learned through interaction with others. It's essentially about who you associate with.
Birds of a feather flock together.
In a way, yeah. But Sutherland gets very specific. He talks about learning definitions favorable to crime. To be a professional con artist, you have to learn how to neutralize your guilt. You have to learn a definition that makes what you do okay in your own mind.
Like the classic phrase, you can't cheat an honest man.
Exactly. That is a foundational definition in the con artist subculture. It completely reframes the crime. It says, I'm not hurting innocent people, I'm punishing greed. If the victim wasn't greedy, they wouldn't have fallen for my pigeon drop.
That is a very convenient moral loophole.
It is. It totally dehumanizes the victim. They aren't a person anymore. They are just a mark. And the more time you spend in that subculture, what Sutherland calls the frequency, duration, priority, and intensity of association, the more that criminal identity solidifies.
And status plays a huge role here, right? In the text, it mentions that professional offenders see themselves as the elite.
They are the aristocrats. A pickpocket or a con man looks down on a mugger. They view violence as crude, amateurish. They see themselves as craftsmen. Interestingly, even the police sometimes treat them with a grudging respect compared to other criminals. There's almost a weird professional courtesy there.
Game recognizes game.
In a manner of speaking, yeah. This creates a very strong professional offender identity. Unlike the shoplifter who says, I'm not a criminal, I just borrowed it, the con artist says, I am a professional, this is my occupation. They take immense pride in the work.
But here is the part of the reading that really blew my mind. The source material talks about Oscar Hartzell. He ran the Drake estate scam, which is one of the biggest cons in history. He convinced thousands of people he was the heir to Sir Francis Drake's fortune and needed money to unlock it.
A master manipulator. He kept that scam running for years, extracting what would be millions in today's money.
But the irony is he got scammed himself.
He did. While he was in London running this massive, highly sophisticated fraud, he went to a psychic. And he started paying her thousands of pounds for readings and spiritual advice.
The ultimate con man became the mark.
It proves Konikova's point beautifully. Hartzell had that superiority bias we talked about. He thought, I'm a genius, I control the game. That identity blinded him. He was human, he had insecurities, and the psychic played him just like he played his investors.
It really drives home that no one is immune. Not even the people writing the playbook.
Oh, no one. Because everyone has a wish they want fulfilled.
Before we wrap up, I want to circle back to something we touched on with the fix. Why do these crimes go unreported so often? We said shame, but is there a broader structural reason too?
There is absolutely a societal component. Violent crime gets the headlines. If someone gets mugged for $50, the police are all over it. If someone gets conned out of $50,000, society often says, well, you should have known better.
We victim blame?
Aggressively. We frame it as a civil dispute or a bad business deal. There is exceptionally weak social condemnation for deception compared to violence, and professional listeners know this. They know the legal system is clogged and that juries are sometimes very unsympathetic to a greedy victim who thought they were getting a 200% return on investment.
It's really a dignity-based crime. It attacks your dignity, so you stay silent just to protect whatever's left of it.
Precisely. And that's why it is so important to reframe how we look at the mark. They aren't just someone who lost money. They are the victim of a sophisticated psychological weapon designed to systematically dismantle their skepticism.
Okay, let's run this all together. We have covered a massive amount of ground today.
We really have. We started with the narrative of Sylvia Mitchell to understand the emotional hook. We broke down the 9-step anatomy of the game from the put-up all the way to the blow-off.
We looked at the psychology, the dark triad, the Q test, and why high self-monitors are actually more vulnerable.
And we applied our core criminology theories. Social learning explains how they acquire the skills through mentorship and practice. Differential association explains how they justify it with phrases like, you can't cheat an honest man, and how they solidify that professional identity.
It really changes how you look at deception. It's not just lying, it's an entire system.
It is a system that exploits the very fabric of human social interaction, which is trust.
And that leads me to a final thought I want to leave you with. We've talked about how con artists exploit our need to believe.
Right.
But isn't that need to believe actually a good thing? I mean, if we walked around trusting no one, assuming every single person was a predator, society would collapse. We wouldn't have commerce or relationships or art.
That is the ultimate tragedy of the confidence game. It doesn't exploit our worst qualities like greed as much as it exploits our best qualities. Our optimism, our trust in strangers, our hope that the world is magical and meaningful.
So, in a way, getting conned is the tax we pay for being human.
A very high tax, but yes, the con artist uses our humanity against us.
Definitely something to think about the next time a stranger offers you an opportunity that sounds just a little too good to be true. Thanks for listening to this deep dive into the professional offender.
Stay curious and stay skeptical.
See you next time.
Audio generated by Notebook LM, reviewed, edited, and published by Professor Dixon.